Which free floor planner is the best for your real-life projects, and how do they compare to professional design software? On stream, we've been testing a multitude of free planners to find this out. This time, we deep dive into Roomsketcher. Stay tuned. Hey guys, my name's Angorabuilds. I'm an architectural technologist based out of Western Canada, and I model buildings in 3D for a living. I also stream about home design on Twitch and YouTube. For the past couple of months, I've been testing out free floor planners on stream with my community, just to see which one would be the best for any real-life projects. Prior to this, we've already tested out the IKEA kitchen planner, floorplanner.com, and Sweet Home 3D. I'll put the link to that playlist down in the description below. Today, we're testing out Roomsketcher. So to give you a little bit of a refresher about how we are doing this, we are testing all of the free planners against each other using the same tiny house floor plan, just so that it's a fair comparison. The tiny house is small, so we can build it quick, and it is my own design, so I know it super well. It also has some unique space-saving design strategies that I thought would be really interesting to test out with the free planners, just to see which ones could pull them off. This is Autodesk Revit. The cool thing about this tiny house design that I would love to build one day, because I think this is so genius, you can stand up in the loft. So we've drawn inspiration from a tiny home builder based out of New Zealand named Shay's Tiny Homes, and she is the first one that I've seen use this strategy where on the second story, rather than having it kind of full loft height at the 7-foot mark or whatever, you lower the corridor in the sides of the house where you don't need full height headroom. So we can put a sofa under here. In the kitchen, it's all kind of built in with the millwork. Same with, you can see it actually continues around, and it just creates, I think, a upstairs that feels a little bit more like a conventional house rather than a loft or like a tree house or something. I could do this solution no problem in my software. Can we do this in any of the other floor planners? Now we're assessing the planners against my software, Autodesk Revit. I use it for work every day. It's like breathing to me. And we're comparing them on 5 separate categories. 1, accessibility. 2, the learning curve. 3, customization. 4, accuracy, and 5, the design to construction workflow. If you want an elaboration on these categories and the logic behind them, or a more in-depth explanation, I do that in my floorplanner.com video. But for now, let's just jump into Roomsketcher. So unlike other floor planners that we've reviewed so far, Roomsketcher actually isn't a web-based software, but rather an app that you download to your PC or your tablet. It is free to use, but like everything we've reviewed, there is a pro version for an additional cost. The pro version is about $12 a month if you pay annually, or $24 a month if you want to do month by month. I believe that's in USD. They market themselves as a floor plan and home design software whose edge is its intuitive nature and ease of use, while still maintaining powerful 3D visualization capabilities. It was originally developed in 2007 under the name Vizino Home Designer. And before it was that, it actually stemmed off of another company that specialized in 3D visualization of the underwater of large oil rigs. All of the 3D development was adapted from whatever that software was. It rebranded to the name Roomsketcher back in 2011 and has amassed quite a large user base of about 5 million users and 7 million projects created to date. It does appear that the largest demographic for Roomsketcher is real estate agents, real estate photographers, home and interior designers, as well as appraisers. This kind of tells me right off the bat that it is probably more of a 3D visualization and designing tool rather than a design to construction tool. But they aren't really marketing themselves as a construction drawing software, so I'm not really that fussed about it. Now, according to their website, Roomsketcher does say they offer a ton of features, and you can scroll through a massive list on that page. I just kind of want to point out that a lot of these features do seem redundant, like saying that you can draw floor plans or create 2D floor plans or generate 3D snapshots or 3D photos. Those items are basically the same thing. And I kind of think that Roomsketcher is overcomplicating its stated capabilities. At its core, it appears that it offers 2D and 3D floor plans, isometric views, interior snapshots or renders, and 3D walkthroughs. Now, for any planner that is generating 3D geometry while you are building in it, these feature offerings are kind of par for the course. The only feature that does seem a bit unique is its ordering floor plans feature, which I think is you sending Roomsketcher your napkin sketch of floor plans, and then they will create a Roomsketcher project for you, which you can then manipulate in 3D and work in. Now, this feature does seem enticing if you are a real estate agent or a real estate photographer and you don't intend to do any design off of it. You just want the plans to communicate what's there. But if you are using Roomsketcher with the purpose of design or a renovation project, I would actually strongly advise that you just set up the floor plans yourself in the 3D software so that you get a better idea of how to actually navigate the interface and learn how to use it and know what you're doing. That's just my thoughts on that. Now let's get building. I I need to make a brief disclaimer before we get going too deep that I am using the free version of Roomsketcher and I'm not using the pro version. There's a lot of features in the pro version that I don't have access to, and I'm not able to speak on the capabilities of those because I don't have a free trial. But if you're interested in seeing a future video where I actually do a deep dive into these pro features, let me know in the comments. It's something I'm really curious about. So my first impression of Roomsketcher is that I actually really did like the app style interface. There is something really nice about launching a planner in one quick swoop. The interface itself, while pretty bare, I think is really clean and surprisingly intuitive to navigate. Everything is icon based, but when you click or hover, it does tell you what it is or what it does, so you can catch on pretty quick. They also have these shorter, more one-off tutorial videos that teach you how to use specific features you're currently hovering on before you use it, and it will autoplay directly in the app. It doesn't send you to YouTube or another platform, and makes learning how to use Roomsketcher really nice and easy. I'll give you a brief introduction to the interface before we dive into building so you understand what we're doing. This guy here is more of the settings tab. We have options for your project. If you want to start a new one, open an existing one. These are kind of your general project settings with things that are happening more in the overall. There's also a blueprint option here, but it does require the pro description. A lot of these features I don't have access to because I don't have the pro version. This is the level toggle. Here on the right side is where you actually get all of your build tools. I really like this. It's quite clean. Right now we're in the walls tab, but there's a windows, materials, and furniture or objects tab. The bulk of what you do in Roomsketcher will be kind of in this window here. You navigate through them here and you'll get different options. For objects, for example, we have different rooms that you can jump between to find items. You can like items, you can search for items. The one that's not super intuitive is there's a wall tab, but there's the windows and etc. tab. This is where the symbols and texts live, as well as like different measurement things. It isn't really the most intuitive. When I'm working in Revit, for example, and I have my own real life projects, these symbols and texts, as well as like measurement capability, it's in an annotations tab, which is basically its own special tab. 3D model geometry is in one place and then annotating is in another place, and they're very separate features. Having it embedded like this, I feel, is a little bit confusing. But generally speaking, this interface is really fast to wrap your head around.
Okay, so we'll start a new project. Okay, well, we're doing a blank project. It didn't really ask me to name anything. Level, new, properties. Well, we're on level 1, so we'll stick with that. And then I guess all these other things we'll just play with after. So we'll start with walls. Wait, can I change the units? Tools, settings here? Oh, here we go, meters and feet. I think this is the first planner that we've played with that we figured out how to change the units on. But is it that easy? Can I just start now? Oh yeah.
I really loved the Roomsketcher wall builder.
Oh, okay. So these are interior walls. The thicker ones are exterior.
I thought it was really intuitive. All the tools were right there. And having the tutorial video right off the bat was awesome.
Oh, you could just draw a shape. I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to draw a rectangle.
When I build walls in Autodesk Revit, I can actually input the assembly, being if it's like drywall, studs, sheathing, siding. I can input that information and then it'll automatically bump out to the thickness that I want. Whereas in Roomsketcher, you can manually enter in the wall thickness if you know it, but you might have to do just a little bit of side calculating first before you get that number. I was pretty frustrated about not being able to enter in the dimensions that I wanted to enter.
Can I type a measurement? No. I have to just manually drag it.
If you click on a wall that's already within a room, you can change the length of it. That being said, in Autodesk Revit, when I'm placing walls, I can just type a dimension and place it down. And I find that workflow much quicker and more intuitive when you can just draw them at the initial correct lengths from the start, as opposed to roughly modeling or drawing all of the floor plan walls and then modifying it after the fact. I always find that more difficult to do. Modifying it after kind of turns it more into a puzzle. Not my favorite feature regarding the walls. The other thing I did notice as well is if I'm doing like an interior wall and I wanted to do a half height wall, for example, I can adjust the thickness and I can adjust the materials, but I can't modify the height of it. It isn't necessarily a wall setting, but it is more in the level properties is where you modify the wall height here. I assume is just where the level datum line is, and then that is how it'll adjust the ceiling heights too.
Let's try adding a second level and just see what happens. Wait, this is cool. We haven't been able to actually draw the lines or the walls for the second level in a design yet, so I'll keep the envelope here. Interior. There we go. So then we toggle back to level 1. Nice.
But we were able to get all of our walls in. We were able to get them at the thicknesses that we wanted, and we were able to add a second level. This is the first planner I've been able to do that without buying the Pro version, which I love, and it's great.
All right, let's do some windows and doors.
Despite it being the free version of Roomsketcher, the library options are quite impressive.
Want more products? Upgrade to Pro, obviously.
Where I run into issues with Roomsketcher specifically takes us back to how you cannot use real-time 3D viewing to see what is going on with what you're placing.
And what does that look like in 3D? Oh, can we not access a 3D isometric? Ooh, so you could only do this in 2D. I gotta upgrade, that sucks. Well, okay. Field of view. Oh! Wait, so I can take snapshots and I can look at it. Okay, so it's not all for naught, but holy heck is this tedious if you want to get any 3D coordination out of this.
It really sucks having to use this little camera tool to constantly update the snapshot to see what you're doing in 3D is what you want to do or what you want to see. Every time you take a snapshot, it does the loading wheel and you have to sit there and wait for it. And then when you look in the snapshot, you can't pan around or move it from the direction that it's already in. If I wanted to look more to the left, I have to take another snapshot. But to take it back to the windows and the doors...
And how do you place this? Oh, you just drag it. So we have 2 pocket doors, and it looks like they come in predetermined sizes already. What does this do? Oh, but you can drag the size of it yourself.
You can adjust the width and the height. It's a pretty fun and quick way to place these things down.
And center and center. It doesn't really hold your hand on this at all. How do I change the swing of it? Kind of just seems like you have to like move it in the right way.
All of these material customizations are behind the paywall. I can't change the door material without having Pro, which is also quite unfortunate to see.
And windows. So we have a lot of windows. Look at all these windows. I'm just gonna pick one of these randomly and then just change the width of it this way because it seems easier to me than just trying to read the measurements on them.
There's some questionable icons. I'm not sure what these little symbols mean.
Is this supposed to be on the inside? I don't know what this little symbol's depicting.
If they're supposed to be opening latches, if you want those on the interior or if you want them on the exterior, I was never quite able to figure that out. The planner doesn't stop me from overlapping geometry though. And it doesn't really call it out as an error or anything either. It just like looks kind of weird when you take a snapshot and you see everything overlaid onto itself. Like what the heck is going on here? As long as you're mindful of that and you know not to do it, Gucci. Now, while the library for doors and windows did seem quite expansive and nice, the library for interior finishes seems a little bit trickier. It's really big. There's 1,100 options here that you can see, but they don't really have a good filtering system if I just wanted to look at woods or if I just wanted to look at tiles. You kind of have to type it in and then let it do the filtering for you. It does it. It would just kind of be nice if they had a tab for it.
Apply. So now if I go back to materials, there we go.
You can't upload your own materials, which is a bit unfortunate if you were trying to do a design project and wanted to see what real finishes would look like together. And the only customization that you can do is just the rotation. From a schematic design perspective, I would say this is enough to get by. You can use it as a way to play around with vibes or palettes and see what tones of things look like together. But it is a little tricky when you get granular with interior design because sometimes the hues of a white swatch, for example, whether they're warm tone or cool tone, can really make or break how a space feels. Now, I've talked about the design stages in the past. I'm starting to get the vibe that this is more of a schematic design planner at this point.
Oh yeah, and then the other thing you can do, I'm pretty sure, is you can click on the walls and then pick the color.
When it comes to placing wall finishes, it does use the side A, side B. The other thing that's really nice about Roomsketcher is that it actually labels the side A and side B for you. I love that it does this. I do like the side A, side B wall finish placing feature. I actually prefer the way that Roomsketcher offers to do it as opposed to how I do it in my software. Placing interior finishes in Revit is actually quite tedious, and I feel like there's a lot of differing opinions on the best way to do it. In Autodesk Revit, the best workflow that I've found is actually creating a wall finish wall type, making it like 3 millimeters thick, and then manually modeling it. Just because oftentimes you'll need areas of things, or when you get into 3D rendering softwares like Twinmotion or Enscape, it just makes the workflow when it's its own standalone little wall a lot easier to work in. It's the exact same for floor finish as well too. I will actually manually model a little floor finish, especially because they usually have a thickness anyway. I use things like filters or work sets, which is kind of like setting layers, to put it simply, to filter it out in different views. The cool thing about Roomsketcher is it does seem that based off of what you're working in, when I'm in wall mode here, it's just showing the walls. When we toggle into the materials, it turns the materials on for you. And then when we toggle into furniture items, it turns on the furniture for you. So it's kind of cool that it filters it automatically. It gave me a heart attack at first though, because I didn't realize that that's what it was doing. And I thought I had lost all of my geometry. I didn't know where it went. But once I realized that that was how it was doing things, I thought it was actually really nice. Just focusing on the components that I wanted to focus on. You know what I mean?
Well, let's try stairs. 1, 2, 3. I'm pretty sure it's just 4. And then you're on the platform. And so far, we have not been able to modify the number of stairs anywhere. You just drop it in. Here, there's one that has 4 stairs here. So we could do this. Back to the snapshot. Back to the snapshot. Oh, wait, we do have little stairs. I wonder if we can change the heights of them. Hold on, let's try. We can! Oh, and you can turn off the left railing and just show the right railing. I like this. I'm happy. Can we pick what kind of railing this looks like? Look at how tall it is. It looks like we have like a slat wall thing going. Maybe I'll just turn the railing off. Let's just turn the railing off. So yeah, this is the first time we've been able to do stairs. That's awesome.
When it comes to object placement under the furniture tab, it is very similar to how you place doors and windows. You also get similar parameters that you can modify, like the width, depth, and height of even things like furniture, sofas, the fridge. You can even modify for objects the height above floor, which is really great to see as well. Now, the one thing that is nice with Roomsketcher as opposed to Autodesk Revit is whenever I want to place objects, components, geometry, I often have to source it from the internet, a website like BIM Object, or I have to make it myself in 3D and save it to my own Revit library. Usually I often choose the latter because I want my 3D objects to be clean and I usually want them to look a certain way. With Revit, you can import a lot of 3D objects that have a lot of extra information that might not necessarily be beneficial to me from the architecture or interior designing side that manufacturers care about. So I often have to clean up a lot of the models and stuff. So when it comes to just wanting to configure a space and see how different things fit or how they're put together, Roomsketcher is much quicker in that front. It even helped me figure out an adjustment I could make to the vanity in my first level bathroom.
This is kind of nice actually compared to how I had it before. Like in Revit, we just put it here. So just go here instead. Oh yeah, we totally have way more space. This is nicer. Okay, we made a good design change from this. Thank you, Roomsketcher. Oh, can you not replace the materials on the components like this unless you... Oh, you can't do it unless you pay. Same with the toilet? Okay.
Library's good. Potential customization is good if you have Pro. I just wish I had 3D panning, guys. It's so hard to do this in 2D and then 3D snapshot everything. Oh my god.
Okay, let's take a crack at these cabinets, because this has kind of been the make or break it for the customization of these floor planners every time. Okay, here is the kitchen. This back wall here is all full height stuff. And then we have the stove kind of in the middle here with the drawers and then the corner cabinet and then the sink on this one.
So Roomsketcher does have one of my favorite ways to model cabinets. They have a general cabinet library, and then you modify the finishes of the cabinets after the fact. This is my preferred way to do it. Some other planners, they'll have the finishes embedded in the cabinets, makes it a little bit harder to work in. But of course, the cabinet color customization is behind the Pro paywall, so we weren't able to actually modify what the kitchen looked like beyond just white boxes, which is really unfortunate for the free planner version. It's also a little tricky when it comes to the cabinets because, again, you're just scrolling through a giant library and there isn't really many filters beyond just kitchen as the components that you're going through. If I search upper cabinet, it just says no elements found. It doesn't really seem to filter or use the search function for cabinet types very eloquently. Fortunately, there was a lot of different kinds of cabinet blocks, so I think we were able to depict every kind of cabinet block that we had in our Revit model. But another tricky part with this kind of sketchy, almost cartoony interface, it was really difficult to make sense of adequate sizing.
This is kind of weird because it doesn't really like snap to anything. You're kind of just like eyeballing this.
Now, while I was actually building out the cabinets, I didn't notice this best fit width or best fit depth feature, but oh my God, I love it. I haven't seen it in another planner yet, but I think that this is amazing when you're trying to figure out how to make things the right size. It is kind of weird though when you zoom in and you look, because you can kind of see the floor finish sticking out between the cabinet. Oh yeah, and you can see a gap here. But the gap, I don't mind the gap because the gap makes it more distinct where the doors and the drawers are, and the countertop still looks continuous, so that's good. Overall, the cabinet customization isn't terrible. You can't really do anything like hardware pulls, or when I placed the sink down, I couldn't change the faucet type. So there's some more granular specifics when it comes to home design that you might not be able to quite do in Roomsketcher. But I think if I had the pro version, this would still be one of my more favorite planners for cabinet customization, at least from a schematic design angle. Okay, so while Roomsketcher does have a really good interface and capabilities for actually creating the 3D geometry, the ability to add the next level above it introduced some intricacies that I just wanted to point out before we are done reviewing this planner for today. The first one being that in our initial home design, we do have almost like a mezzanine opening between the first floor and the second story that does require an opening being created in the floor. When I do this in Autodesk Revit, I just modify the floor extents, and then if I don't decide to put it all the way, then it just automatically creates an opening for me. I couldn't figure out how to do it in Roomsketcher, or if there was even the possibility to. If there is, it could potentially be behind the paywall. The other thing we weren't really able to do was create the dropped floor in like the tiered level sense, so that we had the dropped floor corridor and then the second floor above it that created kind of that full height feeling without the tiny house actually being full height. There isn't really an option in the Roomsketcher interface to model floors. It appears that they're just automatically generated within the extents of walls. From what I could tell, I don't know if we were able to generate bulkheads either. All that is to say that none of the planners have really been able to do this, aside from floorplanner.com did allow you to use surfaces, which you could use to create boxes, but that's, I think, the closest feature that I've seen in a free planner to being able to do dropped floors or bulkheads and things of that sort. But because we were able to get so far with Roomsketcher, it's just something that I want to point out. When I'm doing construction documentation or interior renos for contractors to understand what's going on in the space, oftentimes things like bulkheads or varied heights in floors and walls can often get missed if they're not specifically called out in like a visual way via elevations or the design views or what have you. Something to think about. Now let's get to rating it. Quick disclaimer before we get rating, I need to remind you again, I'm going to emphasize again that we are reviewing Roomsketcher based off of its free version and what was available to me when I was testing the free version. I'm aware that there's a ton of potential with Roomsketcher. There's a lot of features that I know was behind a paywall that would have been amazing and elevated a lot of these categories higher than I actually scored them as. Without further ado, here it is.
Okay. Accessibility, I'm trying to decide if I should give it a 2 or a 3. Now, you do have to download the desktop app and you do have to make an account, so it kind of is not the most accessible thing. Oh, maybe I'll give it a 3. Everything's free. It didn't take up a lot of space. It was a really quick download. I'll give it a 3. Learning curve. Actually had a really good learning curve. I thought this was pretty intuitive. This is my favorite one, I think, out of the 3 that I've had to navigate around and learn how to use. I'm gonna give it a 4. Customization is gonna be a hard one, because I like the placing of the materials and the finishes and stuff better. I like the libraries from what I've seen so far better. Oh, but the paywall, that's why I did 2 for Sweet Home 3D. They also had a pretty serious paywall. Okay, this is going back down to a 2. I'm actually tempted to give this a 1 for accessibility with the paywalls, because you can't navigate in 3D. You can only do 2D planning, and now we're going back and forth between our snapshots the whole time. I'm giving it a 2. Customization for this, I do think this is the best potential for customization that I've seen out of the 3 platforms that we've gone through, except it's behind a paywall. I could not change any of the colors of the cabinets or the furniture or anything. Kind of sad to see it. I'm gonna do this as a 2. It's really good for space planning. I think this is my favorite one that I've reviewed for schematic space planning. So without paying for the pro version, the accessibility of this, or sorry, the customization of this is not good. And I'm actually going to say this is a 2 as well. Accuracy. Accuracy is how much the platform or the software holds your hand in the design to real life practical implementation of what you're doing. So does it help you with things like door frame sizes, wall thicknesses? Does it flag any concerns with like overlapping geometry that you wouldn't be able to do in real life? IKEA kitchen planner, amazing accuracy. This one's tricky because you can't measure a lot of things very easily or quickly. I'm gonna give this one a 2. And the design to construction drawing workflow, this one is also trash. I'm giving this a 1. Like you can't access, I can't do anything with this unless I can get measurements and stuff. All of that is behind the play wall. Right now, this is just a really nice schematic planner. It's good for that, but
now to summarize before we get finished here today, Roomsketcher is my favorite schematic planner that we've tried so far. I think it has had the most intuitive interface. I think it was the quickest learning curve. The embedded tutorials made it really easy to get the hang of. There's a few cons from a free planner perspective that I can't get over though, that would inhibit me from using it professionally. The most prominent of those being the inability to pan around or navigate in real-time 3D. I feel like that was a huge hindrance to what we were modeling and our planning efforts. No material customization of any geometry like windows, doors, and furniture or cabinets. That is a deal breaker to me for a free planner. Great for schematic design. Can't take it much further than that, unfortunately. And finally, the precision of it was really difficult to navigate just with how the graphics were. The measuring tool was really difficult to use. But with Roomsketcher, levels are free, which is great. The libraries for the free version are still quite good, and the interface itself is very clean and responsive. At the end of it all, Roomsketcher is the one that I would probably be the most inclined to purchase the pro version for to give it a try. It seemed to have the most potential for the workflow that I'm used to working in. I do understand why Roomsketcher is more popular with real estate agents, real estate photographers, home decorators, or interior designers. They seem to know their market, and that's what they've leaned into, and I think they do it really well. That's my review of Roomsketcher.com. If you're interested in a pro version review, I'd be happy to do so. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see in the comments. I also do these plan reviews live on my YouTube and my Twitch. So if this is something you'd like to be a part of and engage in with the rest of the community, give me a follow there, like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye!